Morning.
Good morning. I'm still driving. I just got my daughter dropped off in Arvada. Took an hour.
Oh my gosh, it's got to be treacherous out there.
Yeah, it's really slick.
Hmm.
And it's
Be
snowing
careful.
on this side of town again. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
know.
it started up again here. It's coming down
Yeah.
heavily.
Oh, I didn't think it was supposed to amount to much, but it's so cold. I don't know. And I don't know what they can do on the road to help with ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you managed to join us.
Yeah. Like, I'm gonna have to get my earbuds because I'm not gonna make it. I'm usually home by now.
Oh yeah.
I know we had two people that weren't coming for sure. I thought I saw Troy and I can't remember who else sent an email.
Yeah. Who was the other person? Oh, Ken Spangler.
Yep. Okay.
Most everyone else accepted, so
Good.
If you could just tell me when everybody's on, I'll just start.
yeah.
Just have 5, 6 of us on now. Carson and I and you. Jean, Emily, Deb.
Not quite 8, so I'm sure.
Craig, Hebrew. These are days when I'm glad we don't have place to
In person?
congregate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drove in and I wish I didn't.
Oh, you did drive in? Was it
Yeah, and
terrible?
It wasn't, but it's going to get that way. And
Yeah.
then I was halfway here and I go, I'm gonna turn around and I go, no, then I can't make smart commute on time. Yeah, I should be at home too. That's the benefit of Zoom that will be there forevermore.
I think so too. And I think a hybrid should always be offered.
Yeah.
Because some people just don't. I don't know how many of you remember the first time Shoshana came to one of the Native meetings, and it had snowed a great deal and she'd never driven before. She'd just gotten a car and she drove into the parking lot and hit one of those parking bollards or something and flattened her tire. She was about 40 minutes late. Do any of you remember this? And she came in and she was so frustrated. And I swear that has colored her dislike for the North area, because anytime I talk to her about the stuff happening in the North area, I can see that.
I got it. I found it.
PTSD. Yeah.
I found it.
Jean, can you mute yourself? And so it was pretty funny.
Well, now she can feel our pain.
Yeah.
Well, do we have enough on to
You've
have
got
a
10
meeting or?
people now. I think that's pretty good. We can get started. Kyle's on,
Okay.
Waddy's on. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with the February 23rd Smart Commute meeting. So we'll go ahead and start with approval of the January 26th meeting minutes. Any questions on the minutes? And I'm sorry, Carson, you'll have to look for hands.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion to approve. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, everyone, if you're in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed? No? All right, approval of the minutes has been passed. We'll go ahead and move on to the treasurer's report.
I'll give you a quick overview. It's February, we're doing okay. You'll see in the deposits, we transferred 10,000 out of the reserved account, the savings account, in order to make payroll in January. And once all the money comes in, we'll move that back over. That's really our local match for FlexRide e-bike. But I'm putting any of that money into the reserve account. So when it comes to the time that we have to make bigger payments, we have that in reserve. And so we'll put it back. As you can see, nothing unusual for January, February. Ending balance, we're okay. Today there's a balance of 27. And what I have in the savings account is 39. Last time it was 59. I think it was 59, 51, something like that. We took out 1899.50 to pay for some expenses for e-bikes. And that's what that reserve fund is for that and for the shuttle. So that won't go back, but the 10,000 will, which would give us 49,000 in there. And then whatever we get in this year, we're anticipating 15,000 from Thornton, 15,000 from Westminster. In August, we'll bill Broomfield again for another 15, that's 45. And anything else that comes in for FlexRide e-bike will go into that reserve fund. The middle of this year, end of the year, we'll probably start having to pay down that amount of money to carry the costs of e-bike and FlexRide. It's a 4-year grant program. We're in year 3. And so I think all the other monies that we got into this program will be used up by mid-year, and then we'll start having to pay for those costs. Membership renewals, I've sent them all out. Everybody's been billed. We did really well this year. We only have a few that haven't paid their renewal. I have to give a shout out to Jonathan Perlmutter and his family at Larkridge. I billed them last year and they didn't pay. And I billed them this year, and Jonathan called me and he said, "Did I forget to pay you last year?" And I said, "Yes." And so he paid me for last year and this year. So I really appreciate that. They appreciate what we do. And now that they have multifamily over there, they're looking for an extension of the 120X, which we're working on with RTD. Once we get those slip ramps done on the mobility hub at Highway 7, then we have the conversation again with RTD about extending that service to their boundaries, which is what they should have done years ago. We have a couple of CMAQ checks out. We are finished with our last DRCOG CMAQ partnership grant. We've used all that money. The next grant will be coming out in hopefully the end of March. Another 2-year contract with them. We also have some other monies, a TDM grant for 60,000 that will be coming in. Got a number of revenue sources that will be added to what I've already built out here. Adams County local match, we haven't gotten that yet. Gene Putman, can you put your, there you go, thank you. FlexRide NADA membership dues, 12.5, and that won't come in until the NADA jurisdictions pay into NADA, and then they'll pay us. And then we charge an administrative fee of 20. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. As long as they're not from Carson, you should know this already.
All right, if there's no questions, can we get a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, motion has been moved and seconded. Any questions? If everyone is good, then say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. All right, we'll go ahead and move to approve the treasurer's report. Next item on the agenda is the whiteboard planning discussion.
That's you, Carson.
Excuse me. I'm going to look off to the left here. I apologize. My screen is where the PowerPoint is. So if I look weird, that's why. Here's our work plan. We've seen this before, and the bottom has some new notes that we made at the last meeting. Just want to run through this quickly and see if we're on track and where things have shifted around a little bit as we move into kind of the next phase of this year. I'll skip the first one, the revamp and refresh of the website, because I have a whole agenda item for that a little bit later. Our business and employer outreach support program that is really the bell cow of what we do from a day-to-day basis has been really successful in the survey program. You guys have heard before, we had a record number of survey responses this year. And we were able to work with Dr. Cogg's GIS team, Catherine was on our staff, to identify which survey results came to and from a certain jurisdiction. So for instance, those that may have originated in the city of Thornton or come to the city of Thornton for work, regardless of which employer they work for, we were able to capture that data. And we're going to be meeting with each jurisdiction that we did that for. So City of Northglenn, City of Longmont, and City of Thornton here later this week to discuss those survey results. It'll give them a good picture of kind of the mobility from a community perspective and how they're doing as they match up with all of their community mobility plans. This has been a new thing for us, and it's really exciting to kind of take the employer level data and push it out a little bit to a community level data to serve our kind of NADA partners in the whole region. The regional bike network data collection, we all know this is coming up. I won't spend too much time on it. We're about to kick off kind of brainstorming ideas for what that might look like, but we've talked about it in the past and are looking forward to getting started on that here soon as a part of that $60K CDOT grant that we got late last year. The first italicized item here, federal funding advocacy, the North Metro region. I might skip that and push it toward the 84th conversation that I think we'll talk about here a little bit later. I think that's one of our main interests right now, but obviously there's State Highway 7 and there's lots of other projects that are going to be coming down the pike that we're advocating for federal funding for. Smart commute support of ongoing grant opportunities, same opportunity here, CO7, Mobility Hub, I-25, the list goes on for what we're interested in supporting with all these federal dollars we're hearing about coming down. And speaking about that, the NADA meeting tomorrow, we're going to have representatives from CDOT and Hickenlooper's office to come and speak about what those federal opportunities might look like and where we can advocate for those dollars coming to this region from a NADA perspective and a smart commute perspective. So if you're interested, please join and listen to that conversation. And we always post those on the website too later. Should you want me to shoot that link to you, I'd be happy to do that. Partnering closer with AC Rep and the business community. I think we'd love to do this in light of where some of the legislation might be going, if there's any kind of mandate or even a tax credit that we'll talk about here in a few minutes with the legislative update. That'd be a good opportunity for us to get back in, and we're always interested in connecting with new businesses in our area. That's what we do, and so we're always looking to expand that program. Inline advocacy, obviously always on the front of our mind. We spent the end of last year pushing towards bolstering ridership on the inline with our ridership events that we thought were very successful. We'll be doing those again this year, kind of probably more parsed out. We did those at the end of the year to fulfill a grant opportunity with RTD, but I think we'll fulfill that throughout the year in a more cyclical manner. I think one point here that I want to mention on the inline is there may be a potential opportunity. We're exploring the option of connecting the Flex Ride to an inline station, either in addition to or in place of the Wagon Road Park and Ride. These are in very early stages of conversations, but we want to make sure that we get that Flex Ride service to as many regional connections as we can, and the inline might present a really good opportunity there for us. So that conversation is ongoing, and we'll obviously have updates as we move forward on that. And then Front Range Rail, I won't spend any time on that, but we're always interested in that. I know it's vital importance to the region. And as soon as we hear more information on that, we'll be sure to bring it to the board. Karen, what did I miss? Anybody have any questions before we move on?
You missed anything, Carson, but I think we should just report that on CO7 and the Mobility Hub, our Smart Commute team has been very involved in this. And Tammy Harriet, who is our marketing person and who has worked closely with CDOT in her past professional life, has been chosen to be the communications manager for CO7 corridor improvement plan. And we're hoping that that contract comes through in the next couple of weeks. And she'll be in charge of communications and we'll get paid for that. And then on the Mobility Hub, I think she's supposed to be the communications manager for that project as well. It's part of CO7, but separate in the funding mechanism through CDOT. I'm really proud of Tammy for taking the lead on this. She's written a whole lot of that job description, scope of work, funding, costs, all of that. And she will be the communications manager with Commuting Solutions being the co-contract through us for the piece that's west of Erie, because CO7 goes from Boulder to Brighton. So just wanted to call out how proud we are of Tammy for taking this on. It's going to be substantial work, but she's up to it and we'll get paid for it. So really excited about that.
You there?
Thanks, Carson. I think it's a great list.
I'm on mute because I can't see what I'm doing here, but
Lot of work coming up. I just had a question about an initiative that I think took place maybe a year, almost 2 years ago, and was just curious if it was concluded and therefore no longer be on the list. And I think Tammy may have been leading the charge in that one as well. And that was, there was this initiative to get updated data over to CDOT, and those folks were making decisions about where is the growth happening? And I think we identified a few years ago that the sources of data were antiquated and we weren't getting what we needed to truly demonstrate that, hey, there's a lot going on in the North region. So I was just curious to know where that project stood.
yeah.
Tammy, oh, there you go. Good. Thank you, Tammy. Saved the day.
Yeah, Kyle. Yeah, that program did conclude. We were very successful in it. Dr. Cog's data now is so much more inclusive. For example, before we got connected with them with our group, they were only looking at 4 different zoning types of land, and through working with us, they now have over 14 zoning that they're including. The data actually, trying to think, for CO7, for example, they have a subcontract with another company, DEA, that's going to do a analysis for a data analysis for the usage, land use, and population and all that for the different municipalities around CO7. And they're basing it on Dr. Cog's data because it is so much more accurate now. And then they are going to also follow up with the individual municipalities to see what's changed, and then again relay that data back to Dr. Cog so they can add that to their additional. So, and I'm going to be working with them on that as well. So it's going to even get more even better through CO7 efforts. So we're going to be adding additional if they find out anything else. But yeah, it was very successful, and there's several people that have used it since, noting that it's such a huge difference and much better reflection of everything up here.
Great. Glad to hear it. Hopefully it'll bear fruit.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Under the federal advocacy, I don't know if everybody's looked at the new Congressional District 8. But if you look at the boundaries for it, and overlay that with the boundary for smart commute, it's very close to being the same. And the start of the political process for that new Congressional District 8 starts soon. For example, the Democrats will be having a visual meeting tonight of all the Democratic candidates for that Congressional District 8. And I know I'm going to go in and watch that just so that I can see who the Democrats, people who are running. I don't have the information on the Republican side, but for us to be involved, we need to know who the players are. And in this new district, it's starting from scratch, and we need to know.
Luckily,
Thank you.
Jean, we have our local mayor who's running for that seat on the Republican side. So the candidates that are so far announced are pretty involved. And so we'll see, hopefully whoever wins that race is someone who's been involved, especially in Adams County, and knows the transportation challenges.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I know I moved out of the one we were in into 8, so I'll be watching all of that. I think Jean's right. A lot of the NADA area will be covered with Congressional District 8. So it'll be interesting, exciting, and hopefully fruitful for us here.
Don't think there's any more hands. Share.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do the ED transition update. Carson and I are joined at the hip, sort of. We've made a lot of progress. We've gone through all the budgets. We've gone through all the membership. We have gotten storage space, which is wonderful because that stuff is starting to move out of my garage. Had to laugh. We moved stuff yesterday. It was freezing cold. And cold in my garage. We had to have gloves and coats on, but we made a good dent in it. It's good for us. You know, we pulled all that stuff out of our Adams County offices and just put it into my garage. And a lot of it is outdated now. So I'll be taking a trip to the recycling center. To some of that stuff's from 2018, 2019, the pamphlets and information stuff that we have. So I'll recycle that. We have switched out, we're switching out, let's see, all the accounting stuff. Our accountant who does payroll is now going to send that stuff to Carson. The accountant who does our QuickBooks will be sending that stuff to Carson. The people who do our nonprofit 990 tax return will now be working with Carson. He took on the insurance questions. We have 3 different kinds of insurance, and I've been frustrated in the last year because we're paying higher premiums than we were paying before COVID when we actually had a physical office. So Carson met with the insurance people, and while we still need all 3 types of insurance because we do outreach events and we need that insurance certificate is required by most venues. We have a board of directors, errors and omissions policy, and then we have workman's comp policy. He and Carson are going to go through those and try to streamline those insurance policies so that we're just paying for what we need. And I'm really happy about that. I've had conversations with our insurance agent that weren't very fruitful, but I think they're simpatico with each other and they're gonna get that reduced, I'm hoping. We're gonna switch over the bank account. Jessica, I'm gonna send you some information today, and Carson some information so that we can get those accounts switched over. Get a new credit card, debit card in Carson's name for Smart Commute. I think we're re-upping our remote mailbox since we're still all working from home. Let's see, we've gone through all the employee information. We've gone through all of the reports that are due all year long. So some reports are due annually, some are quarterly, some are monthly. And so far, Carson hasn't backed away or said, oh no, I'm not doing this job. So I think we're almost there. We had a really productive day yesterday. And I think by the time I give everybody the keys to the job on Monday, we'll be fully transitioned. And I'll leave it to Carson here to say anything that he wants to add to this, but I'm really pleased with the ability we've had to work together, update things, and cover everything that I think he'll need to have in order to make this pretty seamless for all of you.
That I think you've set me up for success. I think we've got grant processes underway, memberships that are in good places. We got a great board that I know is going to help me steer the ship in the right direction. So I'm just looking forward to getting started next week and continuing the good work that we're already doing.
Yay.
And you have a
Yeah.
wonderful staff.
That's right.
And we have a wonderful staff.
That's right, Tammy. We'll throw that in there.
Well,
Let's
I
not
would be in a
forget.
bad place without staff. That is for sure.
Does anybody have any questions about the transition?
I'll just say, Carson, congratulations. Excited to be working with you. And Karen, fantastic job. You will be missed. I really appreciate all the hard work you've done for the organization. So thank you both.
Thank you, Kyle. You won't be rid of me because I'm still your CDOT commissioner. And now I'm going to put all my energies into getting some of those projects done up in this area. I think the conflict of interest that I might have had for CO7 has been removed by me leaving the organization and letting Tammy get that contract. We were a little bit worried that that might be considered a conflict. And so this will remove that conflict. And then I'm going to pound on RTD to get more service up here. And I think because I'm not at Smart Commute, Smart Commute will benefit from that. So you won't be rid of me. You just won't have to see me as frequently.
All right, let's keep moving. I know the next couple items, the 84th update
Yeah,
might be interesting.
yeah. Did we put a slide on this one, Carson, or is that for tomorrow? Okay. Nope, that's fine. I'll just give the update. So 2 months ago, no, maybe 3 months ago, we had a tour that CDOT sponsored with elected officials and senior transportation staff. We toured the corridor from about, where 270 comes in northbound on I-25 up to Highway 7. And we had Shoshana Liu, our executive director from CDOT, on there, a number of her senior staff people, some CDOT Region 1 engineers like Andy Stratton, you probably know him, Tom McGinnis. We had Rebecca White, a number of people, and we did a tour of the corridor to ask, why did the EA, which was the next step in getting the improvements done, why was that suspended? What's the status of that? What's the funding status? How soon are you going to start making these improvements? Because the improvements have been sitting on the shelf for 18 months now with no onward movement, forward movement. So we had that tour, and I have to say that it was fairly disappointing. And Jessica was on that tour. We had the two RTD directors, Vince Busick and Troy Whitmore, on that tour with us as well. Some of the issues have been with CDOT, not enough funding to do the original EA, which is about, I'd say, I'm guessing $300 million. Used to be $85 million 5 years ago, but the scope has changed. The amount that's allocated now in outward years is 110 million, which simply isn't enough to do much except maybe do some small project as 270 enters I-25 northbound. The center loading platform that was the center of all of this improvement to allow the bus to stay in the center instead of going either side of the park and ride and then complicating traffic flow north and south, was taken out of the project, and general purpose lanes were taken out of the project. So the next month at NADA, as your CDOT commissioner, I convened a subcommittee of elected officials and transportation, senior transportation staff, to be advocates for getting a new EA in place and getting those improvements not only scoped, but funded and put into the 10-year plan. It has been an upward struggle, but we've got an agenda. The first meeting was to meet with all the elected officials and talk about the history and talk about the challenges and talk about what do we agree on. One of the things we agreed on was CDOT has told us that 270 needs to be improved before we can do I-25. They've sort of pitted 270 and I-25 against each other. And it was consensus of the group that they cannot be pitted against each other. They're both necessary and they should both be done simultaneously if possible. That one can't go ahead of the other, that there has to be funding for both. Simply because they're both in Adams County doesn't mean they should be competitive with each other. These are state highways. They are integral to commerce, to safety, to their truck routes, all of that. So we agreed with that. The next meeting we had was with CDOT. This pretty good meeting. CDOT told us that they had met with the executive director and she's agreed to do a new EA, but a more expedited one that won't take so long. They are now going to choose a consultant to do that. What we understand is that general purpose lanes will no longer be part of that EA. It simply is not something that CDOT will allow anymore to add general purpose lanes. So what the EA may have now will be auxiliary lanes for traffic merging, lane balancing, for people being able to accelerate up hills, slow down coming down. There'll be some shoulders against the managed lanes. And then the thing that's still in contention is the center loading platform. One of the reasons it's in contention is because of the cost of it, and CDOT doesn't want to pay for it, and RTD can't pay for it. And when we ask RTD, do you want center loading platform or not? They say, we don't know, maybe, maybe not. What they really mean is we don't want to pay for it. And the way the traffic is configured now, that bus coming in and out of the park and rides on either side merge into traffic, and traffic behind both trucks and cars gets stalled. They have to put the brakes on to allow that bus to get in and move all the way over to the left to the managed lanes to get up to 120th or to come back down. And I think RTD would like it to be just the way it is now. They don't want any changes. But CDOT says in order to eradicate the safety issues that we're having, to solve the safety issues, that entrance on and off of I-25 is problematic. I thought that last meeting was pretty good. We came to a number of, I think, advocated positions from this group. And the next meeting we're going to have is with RTD. So as we build this consensus group, it's similar to what's been done on US 36, similar to what's been done on North I-25. And I have to say that the 119 in Boulder has such strong advocacy from the elected officials that their project funding went from 100 million to 300 million for a roadway 119 that is a smaller length of roadway, but has everything imaginable: bike lanes, pedestrian intersections, just so many things that seem to be extravagant in today's day and age to spend on one piece of highway. But they've had really strong advocacy in Boulder. So we've got to do the same thing. And time is of the essence. We're redoing at CDOT the 10-year plan for the next 4 years. So the first 4 years, money's allocated and projects are prioritized. The next 4 years are on the agenda to look at, and we need to be positioned to get more money put into the 84th project that would rebuild that bridge. Jean was part of that, needing, the 88th bridge to be redone, a number of things. So this next meeting with RTD should be coming up shortly. And then we're following up with a couple more meetings. We're going to follow up with this P3 proposal to talk about how that can help with these safety improvements if it's approved. We're going to have a meeting with Colorado truckers to talk about how important this stretch of highway federal truck route is to the Colorado truckers. We're going to have a joint meeting with the North I-25 Coalition that are advocating for improvements from anywhere from Highway 7 north. But many people in Thornton and North Glen, others have been going to those meetings, and we think that there's a strength in numbers if we can come to some agreement on what has to happen at the 84th to 104th. And then we're going to hit the legislators. We're going to hit the state legislators and the congressional legislators. We'd love to get the governor to support this project. We'd love to get the president to support this project. And meanwhile, we're looking for some federal funding that might help us get over this hurdle that we have, that nobody wants to pay for the center loading platform for transit, which is really integral to fixing this problem. Right now, RTD has to get into traffic and get out of traffic and get into traffic and get out of traffic. When there's a crash on I-25, RTD is stopped just like everyone else. The center loading platform would allow them to run in the managed lane and not have to weave in and out of that managed lane, be able to run at the speed of traffic. We think that'll help. Not only that, though, is the bus staying that comes out of CDOT has been looking to expand their service and have a station every 10 miles on I-25. Sad to say, the mobility hub at 7 and the 88 RTD hub, neither one of them have been a priority for CDOT, while lots of other mobility hubs that are pretty small, both north and south of us, have been funded, at least for design and improvements, all the way down to Castle Rock. And at one point, I think it was Castle Rock who got some money for a mobility hub, and they didn't want it. They didn't like where it was being proposed. And when that happened, I said at a meeting, I'll take that money. I'll take that money and use it up north if Castle Rock doesn't want it. That's not exactly what happened, but you can kind of see that we need to be stronger advocates. And I do believe that some agencies want to wait us out. If you think about the way politics works in the state of Colorado with term limits, seats change, with term limits, and seats change also with elections. And every time there's a change, there's a new getting up to speed. And that strong coalition sometimes is disrupted, and it takes a while to build it back. And I think that's one of the issues we have with the I-25. So this is kind of an effort to quickly do as much as we can. We're holding meetings every 3 weeks so that by June we can say to CDOT, here's what we want. We will help you. We've helped before by, the Tiger grants that we've gotten. We want to be like US 36, where they got funding and they got improvements, and now everybody points to it and says this is a great product. We want to be like North I-25 that has had, $500 million appropriated for the work that's going on up there. We want to be like 119. We want our voice to be heard. So that's the update on stakeholder committee meeting for 84th. I'm really pleased at the attendance we've had. We've had really engaged stakeholders from all the communities. We've had Federal Heights, North Glen, Westminster, Thornton, and Adams County at the table. And we think we've got a movement forward. Now just keep your fingers crossed that we can make a difference. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions on that? It's a lot of information, but it's a good group. I see Jean's hand. I'm at home now, so I can look at things.
Oh, good.
This, with my tenure at the city of Thornton, this has been an issue that I've dealt with for, I can't say how long. And I'd like to make a suggestion. You know how funding got applied to the I-25, I-70 interchange, and they called it the mousetrap? I think we need to call this area the super mousetrap, because there's more interstates and other roadways coming together in one location than the original mousetrap. And I think if we called it the super mousetrap, maybe we can get a catchy name that will spread it and its need to more people. And I think that with the new 8th congressional district, we can get somebody in that position who can be a big promoter for us and this issue.
That's a great idea, Jean. I think you're right. When we say the 84th to 104th, it just doesn't have much oomph, but I think you're right. We need to consider super mousetrap or something like that that will catch people's attention and say, well, what is that? What has to happen there? You're absolutely right on that, Jane.
I'm going to come up with a fun name. We could
Yeah.
probably put that out to the community.
Yeah, we should ask that at the next 84th. Yeah.
No kidding. And I don't think
My
you heard
husband
me
has
earlier.
been calling. He's
Go
been
ahead.
calling it the mousetrap because he wasn't aware of the original mousetrap. He's
Oh.
from Kansas City, so he always calls it the mousetrap. And I have to say, no, that's not the mousetrap. But
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to him why I-70 and I-25 is called the mousetrap, because of all of those different highways coming into place just south of 84th. So I think that you could almost like just rebrand the mousetrap.
Great.
Well, when you have I-76, I-270, I-25, US 36, that's why I thought about the name the super mousetrap or the giant mousetrap, because it is the connection of a lot of different roadways, and it's causing a problem and has for several decades. And I think we need to give it a name that other people outside of our area will understand and go, yeah, that is a pain.
We'll have to see what we can come up with. I think that's a fun idea. We've got a few months before we can, probably bring that forward to them. So I love it. Thanks, Jean. Let's keep moving. We've got about just a little more than 15 minutes left. So the legislative update, is that going to be just on the transportation? Okay, yeah. So this is the one, I think, if we look at this, the only one that I really wanted to mention on the high level was that there is sort of a e-trip version coming back this year. So to keep our eyes open for that, there's a lot of that conversation happening at DRCOG.
We just thought we'd give you an overview of the three that we think are important to this kind of an organization. We may be asked to take a stand. I know some of the TMOs are taking a stand on 1138. This is the one, I think, Jessica, that you have a concern about, and some of the chambers have a concern about. We'll watch it as it moves along, but I'm not sure we want to take a stand. Carson, you've been in a lot of those different meetings with the TMOs. What's your take on this one?
Sure. I think the number one takeaway is it's a pretty incomplete bill at this point, and they're going to take a lot of amendments, and there's a lot of groups that are interested in providing those amendments. So I don't see any point in offering any kind of a stance informally or formally right now, because I think it's going to change. When I read the entire bill language, I'm confused about what penalties might look like, what the requirements might be. So I think that would be my 2 cents.
Sounds great. Two others we want to talk about. The 1028 is one of these, do you remember the Idaho stop for bicycles, where bicycles don't have to, they say bicycles and pedestrians, but it's really about bicycles. Bicycle Colorado has lobbied heavily for this bill, which allows bicycles to go through signalized intersections as well as stop signs. And we at CDOT, many of us at CDOT are really concerned about this because the safety factor. At one point, we thought about putting in rules that wouldn't allow bicycles through areas of construction because it's so dangerous for bicycles. I think we have some concerns about the signalized intersections not having to obey the signalized intersections. But CDOT is not taking a stand on this. They're monitoring it and trying to add amendments because we've been told the governor will sign this bill. It's been heavily lobbied by Bicycle Colorado. And one of the things they asked for a couple of years ago was to allow bicycles to go through the Eisenhower Tunnel. We managed to stop that legislation, but I do think it's a slippery slope when you allow bicyclists who want to act like bicyclists sometimes and want to act like cars another time. I don't think it's difficult for the bicyclists, but I do think it's difficult for drivers to know what the law is. And I'm personally worried about the animosity between drivers and bicyclists that this might exacerbate. Anyway, my 2 cents on this, we don't have much to say about it if in fact the governor is going to sign this bill. But we are trying at CDOT to put some amendments in there to protect safety issues. And then the other one I want to mention that's not on here is the possibility of an EV bill coming back. A year ago, Representative Valdez wanted to allow electric vehicles to run in toll roads free of charge. It wouldn't be E470 or Northwest Parkway because those are private, but it would be CDOT's toll roads. And the problem with that is, of course, that it's a kind of elitist opportunity for people who can afford EVs. Meanwhile, we're trying to put a program in to allow people who live against Central 70 to have a toll credit that they can use the toll lanes for free for a specified number of trips or a specified number of years. In order to offset, them getting a toll lane adjacent to where they live. it seems to me like if you're doing that for disproportionately impacted communities at some level, but you're allowing EVs to go for free without any kind of limit or any kind of limit on how many or how often or any of that, it seems to sort of fly in the face of the other project that we're doing. More than that, the more people who are getting EVs, the more who will then ride in the free lanes and managed lanes. And one of the reasons toll roads work is because there's limited access to them and you pay extra to have a reliable trip. When those toll lanes get congested, there's no incentive for anyone to get into them and pay for them. And the traffic and revenue studies that finance the construction of these toll roads have an expectation of how much revenue will come in to offset the original financial package that could be compromised, and it could affect Colorado's financial rating for projects that have any transportation related components. So that's still being talked about, percolating. I think CDOT's working really hard to try and ask the proposer to step down off of that, but we don't have a number on that. It hasn't been introduced. It's just out there as a let's watch this space project.
Any questions on any of those? I don't see any hands. So we'll just keep an eye out. I think you're right. A lot of this is going to change as we move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the rebranding and logo.
Sure, I take this one. So we talked a little bit about it last month. Just want to give an update about where we are in the project. Just as a reminder, this is funding from a portion of that $60,000 CDOT one-time TDM support grant to do the website and logo refresh. The other half will go to that kind of bike data exploration gap analysis map that we're kicking off here soon. So this project will include a full website rebuild. Right now, today, we're in the wireframe stages, which basically means we're looking at it with nothing included on the website, no content. We're able to see where how menus will work. The whole goal here is to simplify and modernize the website. It's a little bit older. There's a lot of great content that we have that's hidden behind a lot of complicated menus. Karen over here with the mega mousetrap, that also reminds me of our website in a lot of ways. It's a bit of a mousetrap in there right now. So we're just trying to simplify that too. Mega mousetrap is really good. Our logo and brand refresh, we're doing that all in one. Nothing super intense in terms of who we are as a brand. We already know who we are as a brand, so we just want to modernize and refresh it. It'll be a significant logo change. Our logo right now was made by an intern 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I'm not even sure, but the idea will be make it more simple, a little bit more neutral as we move into the forward, but that'll be a significant change, but with a similar green and blue kind of color palette to maintain that Smart Commute brand that we've built over all these years. At the same time, all this is happening, we want to remind you that we will be having a new name. That new name is in quotes because it's just Smart Commute. And I think we've known this for a while. We've already purchased the domain smartcommute.org, and we'll change our emails over to Carson or Carson Priest at smartcommute.org. A little bit easier. We had a misspell in an email domain last week, and I do it all the time because ours is so long. So this will be really nice to change that. It'll make us feel a little bit more modern and fresh, I guess. The timeline is still early to mid-March. We're moving right along with this, and I'm excited to see kind of where we end up. I think we'll bring, once we get through the color palette round and have a few like more concrete logo with color ideas, we'll bring them to some form of the board here for approval, and so you guys can take a look. We just want to make sure we don't overwhelm the board with a million decisions, because there are a lot. What did I miss, Karen?
That's great. Just thank you for all your back end work on this. You know, some of these decisions, as you say, are so many decisions that to get to something that we can bring to the board for a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing. Takes a lot of back end work, and you've done a lot of that, Carson, and really appreciate your thoughtfulness on this and the excitement that we've got. It's going to be great. I do have to shout out to Gene Putman, who did our first logo, which was the NADA TMO logo that we changed about a year into Smart Commute. But he originated the first one, and you're right, an intern working for me threw together, you know, a cut and paste sort of a logo for us that we've used all this time. So pretty excited about being much more modern, edgy, cool. I don't know, what's the word? Whatever, but it'll be great and you'll love it. And it'll be so much easier for us as we tell people who we are, and being able to figure out how to email us. So it's great. That's great.
Thanks. I think we're all looking forward to seeing the logo choices. Looks like we're at the end of the agenda.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everybody for their involvement through the years. I have to say, you know, the city of Thornton started us. They managed us for about a year. We started off with $100,000 a year with one employee. You know, we've done 10, almost, I think we've done 9 transforms. We've accomplished a whole lot, and we appreciate all of you on the board helping us do what we do. We are now, I think, considered, you know, an important stakeholder in the TDM world. We've got 3 very, very accomplished people working at Smart Commute. It's a great team. They're well oiled. They work together well. I'm sad to leave. You won't see me every month anymore, but I hope that eventually, occasionally, you'll ask me back to give a CDOT report, or when we do the transform, I'd like to be on your mailing list for that. I'm going to be on your mailing list for the newsletter. And any of you who want to reach me, I'll send out my personal email by the end of the week to everybody. But thank you all for being part of this organization and the time and effort that you put into it. I was thinking this last night, Jessica. The city of Thornton has always had a mayor or a mayor pro tem on this board. And that's one of the most consistent board members we've had all these years. So thank you. Appreciate your dedication to this. I think we're a pretty cool group, and I'm proud of what we've done.
Thanks, Karen. I don't think that you'll be able to escape us that easily. So I see a couple hands up. So I see Kyle, go ahead, and then Pedro, and then Jean.
Well, that was such a great wrap up. I almost hesitate to add something else to it. But, and maybe this can go, Carson, on a future agenda item. I was just curious to know what the status was of the ROTUS sort of unsolicited improvement package for I-25. That seemed like it held some promise. Just curious to know where that went.
Well, I'm happy to give you that update. So the process for an unsolicited proposal is several steps. The first step is to give the proposal $5,000 to CDOT, have them look at it and say whether or not it has merit to move into the evaluation stage. And the HPTE board, and now we're called CTIO. What is CTIO? It's a Colorado Transportation Investment Office instead of HPTE. We gave the approval or gave the recommendation to CDOT to move forward into the next phase. And so we've moved into the next phase. That's a $50,000 investment by the proposer to answer all the technical questions that CDOT would have. And that's probably going to take 6 to 8 months to go through that process. And then there's a little bit of negotiation there that CDOT could come back and say, we like your proposal, but we'd like you to add this to it. Or we like your proposal, but we don't like this piece of it. So that comes on. And then if that's approved, then it's considered a project that goes out for RFP. The proposer can change their project or use a project they've already proposed, but it also is out there for others to propose against the same criteria. Initially, the CDOT director was reluctant to move this project forward, but I believe I had lunch with her Monday, I think it was. She's changed her opinion now that maybe a P3 is a way to get I-25 done. And part of it is the piece of it that says they get, I think it's 50 years they're proposing, they get the responsibility of operating and maintaining that project for 50 years. And one of the things we find the hardest at CDOT is to continue to protect our assets once we've built them, because the cost of that is escalating. And so under a scenario like this, while the proposer gets the toll revenue, the proposer also has to do operations and maintenance to a certain level. So the good news is that's moving forward. We at the 84th group, the mega mousetrap group, will be having ROTAS come in and talk about what they envision they could do to do some of the safety improvements on I-25. Did have a meeting with ROTAS, Vince and Deborah Johnson of RTD about 2 weeks ago to talk about whether they want the center loading, RTD wants a center loading platform or not. And if they do, would they be willing to go in with ROTAS and CDOT and RTD to go after some grant funding? It's not in ROTAS's proposal, but they're willing to maybe put some money toward it if we can get other funding. It's a big, I think it's about $200 million for that whole reconfiguration there. So good news is, yep, it's moving forward so far.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen.
I think Pedro, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, I just want to thank Karen for all the hard work she has done and for bringing this group together and growing into what it is today and really helping our community to move better. And she's been a great advocate for mobility, transportation. I know her since I got here into the Northwest Parkway. So I wanted to make a suggestion, and I'm not sure if that's possible within the bylaws of the Smart Commute, but I thought that it would be great if we could make her an honorary member of Smart Commute. I don't know if that's something, but I think she really deserves that honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't know what our bylaws say, but I think if it would be a perfect fit.
I agree.
I think
Thank
one thing I'd like to say something too, which I could say a lot and I'll probably start to cry, so I won't do that. I know that before Karen, I never took public transportation. And since I've met Karen and the team, every time I take a bus or a train, no matter where I'm traveling, I always say, oh, Karen would be so proud of me. So I think I'll feel that way for the rest of my life, Karen. So thank you for that and everything else.
Well, thank you, Deb. I really appreciate that.
And I imagine you'll have lots of comments tomorrow at NADA as well, Karen.
Thanks, Jessica.
Gene has his hand up still. We'll just go real quick. It's 9:01. I want to be
Yes.
mindful of everybody's time.
I want to say personally to Karen, this has been a lovely trip having you as the executive director. And it was such an easy selection over 10 years ago to bring you on board and start this organization. And I'd like to second Pedro's thing about having Karen being a honorary member, because she really helped us go from an idea to something that it is well known and looked at by other TMOs for what they're doing. And she needs to be applauded for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. And I remember that interview process, and I was wondering, can I really do this? but I had all of you behind me helping. So I appreciate that.
And I think we'll be the first city, but not the last. We were able to read off a resolution last night, just honoring Karen and all of her accomplishments. So
Oh,
I think, yeah, we really appreciate everything that you've done, Karen, but I know you won't be going too far away. So I know I'll see you very soon.
Thank you. That was a lovely event last night. And my gosh, I think you got every single thing I've ever done into that resolution, and I'm going to frame it. So thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, we're just a couple minutes after 9. So thank you so much for coming in this morning. I'm glad we didn't have to all drive on the road either. And we'll see everybody next month.
Thank you.